Blog Talk Radio.
Well, good evening, folks. This is Dave Schmidt. I'm here, your host here again tonight on the November 2nd program of the Cosmic Connections. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. It's going to be a little bit of a different program that is here. And again, folks, you know, I had to reboot my computer. I had to, you know, upgrade different software and everything. So those of you that are on Facebook, just do me a favor and just put in a little kind of a note there that you can hear me and everything seems to be fine and going there. And with that, Blanca, how are you doing this fine evening?
I'm doing very well, Dave. Thank you.
How are things going there in Atlanta?
Okay?
I'm sorry, go ahead. I can hear you just fine. You're coming across very well. Yeah.
All right, that's good. Because sometimes we get the feedback that it's hard for them to hear me on Facebook. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's about a 30-second delay from when I'm talking before it appears on Facebook, so they're starting to come through and says everything is sounding great.
Oh.
Thank you very much, folks. So,
Sure.
yes, so Blanca, I don't have a whole lot of stuff there tonight. Is there anything specific you want to share with us before we get going on the program?
No, but I listened to that Barbara Marciniak recording that she did, and I got to listen to it earlier this week, and it's amazing how things have been happening every day that seem to underline what she was saying. So it's going to be interesting to discuss it, and maybe our listeners will also be able to show their own examples of what the Palladians have been talking about.
You know, it's quite interesting. As I said, I'm always a little bit cautious when I'm using channeling material because, folks, I've run into people that are channelers and their ego is still right smack in the middle of what they're talking about, and it just doesn't come across very well. And then on the other hand, a lot of channelers are great, wonderful people, but the things they channel are kind of what I call airy-fairy, for lack of a better term, if that's the way to say it. But what I have always enjoyed about Barbara Marciniak, when she brings the Palladians through, they're very practical, they're very logistical, they're down to earth, and they're talking about real events that are happening here on earth in our everyday real world. And she's gone through the test of being credible in what she's done. She's been doing this for close to 30 years, and so there are literally tens of thousands of people that listen to her and that believe in what she's bringing forward. And when she's talking, remember, it's not just her, it's the Palladians that are basically describing that. And for those that are still kind of new to this, these Palladians are these very benevolent, basically beings, for, you know, multidimensional beings from the Palladian star system. It's a group of planets that are out there. If you know where to look in the sky at night, you can actually look up and see, you know, the group of the Palladian planets that are there. And what it comes down to is that, yes, I am willing to acknowledge, and it's very much a part of absolute deep good historical records, is that we live in a world where those of us here on planet Earth aren't the only ones, you know, in this galaxy, in this solar system. There are other, what we call non-physical beings. We on Earth live in this third-dimensional physical world, but they're out there. And so tonight, I don't want to say for the first time, but I'm really going to get into a message that had come from them, because it was just so down to earth and so relevant and so practical about what's happening in our everyday life of this crazy, chaotic stuff that's going on in front of us. Now, before I go back to you, Blanca, I just want to say there was a reason why I did not share the file, the recording file, and send it out in my newsletter. I want to respect Barbara Marciniak of who she is and what she does. To receive the recordings, you basically have to go to her website, and you have to pay a small fee. It could be anywhere from $2 to $5 to be able to download the recording. This is how she makes her living. This is what she does, and she doesn't charge an exorbitant amount, but she basically says, if you want to hear this, you're going to have to pay something. So I want to respect that, But what I will do in just a little bit in the program, I will let you see her blog site, and I will give you the the website addresses there, and then you can go there. And if you want to get the recording yourself and listen to it, you can do that. But with Blanca, why don't you go ahead and share with us what was your impression of it, because you did listen to it, and that's kind of what we're going to discuss tonight. So.
Right. Well, I also want to preface with the fact that this is what is called a channeled message from, what do you call it, non-physical beings. Now, a lot of your listeners are very aware, very open-minded, and pursue different avenues of learning and different avenues of information. So they could be fairly comfortable with the notion and idea of channeling and non-physical beings. For those of you, if that's something a little newer to you or you're just getting used to it, I would invite you to just open your mind and not to let anything come through, but open your mind to allow yourself to hear the information. Does it make sense? And if there's any advice as to how to navigate the current times, that sounds like it might work for you, to try it. Some of the things that we're going to find as we go into the new reality is that we're going to have to work with information differently. Before, we would work with information on, well, so-and-so said it, or such and such news station said it, or such and such authority said it, and that's going away by the wayside now that we're seeing that many of the authorities are very corrupt and compromised and maybe psychotic to boot. So we're going to have to learn how to obtain information and discern what is real and what isn't real. We're going to have to rely on ourselves and our own awareness to determine that. So I'm just inviting you to practice that with this information.
Well, we sometimes become a little bit cautious about what we call channeled information, but we don't realize how much of our history is filled with religious literature and the Bible, if you can really say that is filled with, they just use a different terminology, what's called Holy Spirit inspired information. Hello, that's downloaded information from a non-physical source. The scriptures that are there, the Bible, the inspired part of the Holy Spirit, when the Holy Spirit downloads information, that's called non-physical information coming from non-physical beings. And if you've read that book that I referred to you in the last couple of months about Jesus, his autobiography, he talks about that one of the things that he was an absolute master at was his ability to clearly hear from non-physical beings. That the vast majority of his teachings and his direction was information that was downloaded to him from these very highly conscious, loving, non-physical beings, and that's where he got most of his information. So he was a master at it. I think we can probably be willing to accept that and take that in as well. And Blanca, I really enjoyed what you had to say, is that that's part of our growth, that's part of our development as humanity, where we learn how to trust information that comes to us from outside of what is called the physical world, instead of information that is coming from the outside, which can be distorted, it can be incomplete, it can be very low in its vibration. We learn how to find it within ourselves. What we're discovering, especially as I'm reading a lot of these new books, is that we already have within us, within the memory, within our DNA, is everything that we need to know about what goes on in this universe. It's already a part of us, but it's locked and it's blocked deep down in the recesses and memories of the unconscious and the subconscious mind. And we are now moving into an era that we're going to start learning how to release some of that. And if you want to understand how you can make a discernment between what is it that you can trust, that's good, trustworthy information, versus information that can be deceptive, manipulative, or even be coming from what we would call a dark source. Again, the Jesus autobiography book totally lays out about how to do that. A very, very big part of that, he says, is learning how to totally get in touch with your emotions. Because your emotions are the things that are going to be able to be speaking to you, and you learn how to discern within them what's truly coming from what is called what I would call your own Holy Spirit connection. That's a key source. Now also, Barbara Marciniak, in her first book, Bringers of the Dawn, totally, again, duplicates that message. She says it's so important for us to get in touch with our feelings and our emotions, because those are the things, once you learn how to appropriately decipher those are the things that you can learn to trust from the information coming into you. That's better than almost anything else. So, what else would you like to share with us, Blanca?
No, well, that's correct. Again, as we work on, as we've been talking about, entertaining higher frequency thoughts, entertaining higher frequency emotions, we start becoming accustomed to an awareness at that level. And the more we're in that sort of state, then when we receive information, or information that would come from, let us say, higher mind or higher self, we'll recognize it because we understand that particular frequency. And so then what we can determine from messages that come in, what frequency are they in? And that will also help us with discernment. But the first thing is for us to practice being in those higher frequency emotions, or holding those higher frequency thoughts that inspires higher frequency living and behavior. So it all works as a package. And so therefore, that's why we're getting information from non-physical beings, or some people call it higher mind, some call it source intelligence. There's a lot of labels for this particular knowledge. And as Dave pointed out, a lot of this knowledge is what is found in the old ancient sacred texts. And as he mentioned, they just use different terminology to describe it, but that's what we're talking about here. And yes, as we become more aware and we become more real, because unfortunately we've been programmed to be very artificial, as we become more real, then we're tapping into more of our reality, or real I-T knowledge.
Yeah. I think you touched on something that's extremely important. It's learning how to feel, to interpret, and understand the energies that are moving through your body. Because when very high conscious, high frequency energy beings want to be basically speaking to us, we're going to receive that as a high energy vibration within ourselves. If it's something that we are tapping into that is coming from what we call a lower dimension, a dark entity, that vibration is going to come through. So that's why your emotions are key, because you will feel the vibration of the energy that is there. Is it coming from something that is peaceful, powerful, positive, loving, caring, etc.? Those have very high frequency vibrations to them. If it's coming from something that's deceptive, something that's an intent to entrap, something that is malicious, something that is lying, it's going to have a low frequency vibration to it, and you'll feel that. Now, that's all I want to talk about that, but one of the best things to do, as I mentioned, is to read a couple books that I've mentioned. One is that Jesus autobiography. And then I want to introduce you to a new book tonight, and I'm absolutely loving this book. And then this is Barbara Marciniak's very first book. It's called Bringers of the Dawn. Now, this is a whole complete, and it's called The Teachings from the Palladians. And the whole book is a channeled book. Here's what's so interesting about this book. It was published 28 years ago. That's when she started doing all this. And yet, as I'm now about a little over halfway through the book, and I am stunned about the relevancy of the book, about the things that they talk about that are going to be coming our way in this shifting and changing world that we're going through, about a lot of this is just starting to happen now. This crazy chaos is a part of what they describe within the book, of what creates the shift and changes that we're going to be going through. But so even though the book, was published 28 years ago, it's so relevant to where we are today about who we are and what is our responsibility. And they use the term what is called the family of light. And in there, the Palladians are saying, if you're reading this book, you're a part of that family. They talk about that there are millions of what we would call humans here on this planet that are really a part of the family of light. And we are the ones that have come here, incarnated here, to bring in this higher frequency energy of light information to help shift and change this world. And there's millions of those is what they say. And the very fact, they say if you're reading this book, you're already there. You wouldn't even be reading this book if you weren't a part of the family of light. I'm going to take that to the next step. You wouldn't even be listening to me in this program if you were not a part of this family of light. We have all chosen to incarnate here to be a part of this process. You wouldn't be here on my list to receive these incoming funds if you weren't a part of that family of light. Because all of that is a part of the bigger picture about helping to create the shift and the change that we're going through as humanity here on this planet Earth. So, with that, Blanca, is there anything else that you would like to share before I'm just going to go in and start sharing from all the notes that I had taken, from listening to that recent broadcast that she had?
Right. Well, it is an inspiring thought, and she's not the only one who talks about this. There's others who've talked about it in terms of if we're here at this time when the matrix is dissolving itself, it's because we're here to resuscitate and bring in the new. And so when we see the matrix in chaos, etc., rather than focus on that and how spooky that looks, we're to focus on the new and what we're trying to create, and use the fact that the matrix is going crazy and wonky and contradictory as evidence that the new is coming forth.
Absolutely.
That's all I have to add in terms of that thought.
Absolutely. The very fact that things are so chaotic and so crazy right now is the transition. It's showing us the transition that the old is starting to crumble and fade away, and the new powerful positive higher vibration of light it's making room for that to come in. This is a very normal process when there's transition that goes on. Now, before I get in and start sharing some information, let me share with you, so if you want to go and listen to that recording yourself, here it is. It's called Hidden Harmonies, Part 1 by Barbara Marciniak. Now, it was recorded on August 16th, which was basically, just a little over 2 weeks ago, but she didn't release it until just 3 days ago. And now here, this is her website. You can go in and you can Google, Barbara Marciniak, and you'll see this band camp, the Palladians, channeled by Barbara Marciniak. And these are all of her latest messages. August 16th, there's a December 15th recently, there's a July 19th, just, a couple of months ago, if even that, July 4th, June 21st. These are the messages that she has that are coming through. But this one, what is called the Hidden Harmonies, is the one that it was so relevant to what's going on in our crazy world right now. So let me go back. Again, for those of you that really want to see it, it's there. There's the Hidden Harmonies. And, if you want it, you basically have to go in. You have to click on it that you want to get it there. And you got to pay just a little small fee for it. And then you can download, the whole message that's there. It's an hour and 17 minutes long. So it basically you would want to download it as an MP3 file is what you would want to do and save it as that. Save it on your computer, put it on your phone. You can listen to it when you're out and about, but it's just a great, great positive. It talks about the reality of a lot of crazy stuff that's going on. And some people who listen to it, it creates some fear for them. And with that, I want to so strongly emphasize is that fear is a matter of perception. It's how you choose to view it and how you choose to see it. And in fact, right from the very beginning, she starts out, she says, we are moving into a movement of fear and control, that there are these powerful elites that are wanting to control this world. And it's not only the physical elites, there's a non-physical influence that is coming from what you would call the other non-physical entities that are dark in their nature, and they want to keep us in fear. And why is that so important? As physical beings, we eat food to give us energy. It's food that energizes these physical bodies. But they're non-physical beings. So their food is not physical food. Their food is the energy of these memes that we send out with our thoughts. Remember how I've shared your thoughts create these little tiny electromagnetic particles called memes, and it's kind of like how even a cell phone can operate on a wireless manner, and these memes go out and they have a vibration to them. These lower dark entities feed off the negative lower vibration of our memes, and fear is the greatest creator of that. So when we are operating in fear, we are producing their food. Now, there's another positive side to that, because there are highly conscious beings that feed off of our positive memes, the higher vibrational energy. You see, they are attracted to a vibration of energy that is in harmony and balance with where they are themselves. So if they are lower energy, dark entities, they're going to feed off of lower energy vibrational memes. If they are positive, loving, caring, compassionate beings, they're going to feed off of our higher energy vibrations. Remember, when it comes to energy, like attracts like. They attract into their lives the energy that feeds them with where they are. Now, when I share this with you, this isn't just me saying that. I've got 4 or 5 different credible sources that are all saying the same thing. So in that non-physical world, this is highly understood that these non-physical entities feed off of our energy here on planet Earth when they are here in our environment. And so you've got these dark energy ones that are wanting to create fear. They are using their power, they are using their influence to create fearful events, fearful happenings, and they want humanity being in fear. Folks, what in the world do we think is going on right now with COVID-19? This is the greatest global fear-based, fear-creating event I can ever think of in humanity's history going back thousands of years. We haven't had anything like this, where the whole world is being hit and operating in fear. So there's this massive dose of fear energy that's going out there. And what the Palladians are saying is, it's not done yet. We have only started. Things are not going to get better. They basically said there is no old normal to go back to. We are in the midst of a process of shifting and changing. But now, for those of us that are operating in the higher vibrations, the positive aspects of these chaotic events is it's an opportunity for purging and cleansing. Now, there's another thing that the Palladians are mentioning very, very strongly, that it's extremely important that we understand the influence of technology and how it influences our lives. What they're saying is it's important to use as little technology as necessary, to not get over engrossed in the using of technology. Because technology that comes out of our TVs, out of our computers, out of our modems, the vast majority of it is low vibrational. And so it's not something that's creating a high positive aspect. And what we're doing, We're using technology to gain information outside of us, to bring into our lives, to think that this is what I need and want. When what they're saying is, no, everything you need to know is already inside of you. It's just learning how to transition and learning how to tap into that part of your life. Now, yes, we use technology. We're here on the computer. You're here on the internet. We have cell phones, etc. The issue is to not have it so deeply engrossed in it. I'm going to explain something even that Jesus talks about in his book. It's extremely important that we turn off the TV. And you only use it when it's necessary. Now, I've got a really big TV sitting right over here, just about 3-4 feet, probably about 5 feet away from me, 5 to 7 feet. I'm lucky. I don't want to say I'm lucky. I don't turn that TV on about maybe once every month or two. And it's just for a short period of time. I only use it when I feel it's necessary. What they are saying is this world that we're moving into of these EMF, electromagnetic frequency waves, it's bombarding our earth. And they're predominantly low vibrational energy. And they are being used to keep us in low vibrational thought so we can be controlled and dominated and kept in fear. And they said not only should you turn the TV off and not pay any attention to it, you should learn how to go within. Here's what they're also saying. Unplug it. Unplug it. Because the TV, if it has access to a remote control, wireless remote control, it's still sending out EMF waves even if it's turned off. Even if it's turned off, it's still sending out low vibrational electromagnetic frequency waves. And what the Palladians say, it was all designed purposely because they knew that we would be a culture that would be entrapped into television. Using television, it would become a form almost of a hypnosis to us to watch it, and it captures you. It brings you into almost a type of a. I'm going blank on the word I'm trying to look at, but it sucks you into it to pay attention to it, and it's very low vibrational energy that keeps you in a low vibrational perspective. And what happens when you do that, your brain cells begin to shut down, and where you're not receptive to bringing in and taking in new information. And those electromagnetic frequency waves do that, and it even comes out of the TV even when it's turned off. Because almost all TVs today have wireless remote control to turn it on and off. So I unplug it. I have 2 TVs here in my home, one in the bedroom, one there. In fact, I can't even tell you the last time I've turned the one on in the bedroom. And I've been here for a year and 4 months in this place. I think I've only turned it on once or twice. But it's unplugged, and that one is unplugged. If there's an event that I want to be watching, of course, I may watch it, but I don't spend any extra time. Turn off the technology that is producing these electromagnetic frequency waves. Turn them off if you're not using them. Because there's a lot of deception that is going on behind that. And in this world deception, it's basically a battle of ideas. Now, what I'm doing, I'm starting to look at the notes that I wrote down as I went through Barbara Marciniak's message. We are moving into this massive difference of humanity. There's a complete discord of differences that's going on in our world. And these differences are designed to isolate people. They want us to isolate ourselves from each other, to be in contention with each other, to be arguing with each other, to be fighting in our minds with each other. And a lot of that is happening right now over the politics. Folks, remember, I was around politics, involved in it for 25 years. I have never seen our world, and primarily our country, so divisive, so partisan, so divided. And folks, we're divided right down the middle. Look at what happens in the presidential elections. Neither one of the candidates can get more than 49% of the vote. Look how close we are, so divided in our political elections and in our political ideologies. what the Palladians are saying is it's all a design. It's all coming from the influence from these non-physical sources that are wanting to keep us in division, so that when we do that, we isolate each other, remove ourselves with each other, we lower our vibrations, and when we stay in the lower vibrations of fear, it allows them to control what's going on in our lives and in our world. So, it also says that isolation creates a limiting perception. Our perception, our ability to perceive what is going on, our ability to process what's going on around us becomes very limited when we put ourselves into isolation. And so what they're saying is, here we are in the era of COVID-19 that's been going on for 5 to 6 months. We are being told to stay home, to stay away, don't socialize, keep your 6-foot distance. Now, everybody needs to do what's important for their healthiness. But here's what I'm saying. It is so important that you have the opportunity to socialize and gather together in a healthy manner. Because it's in the socialization that we become inspired. It's in the socialization that we become informed. It's in the socialization that our perception begins to pick up and we're able to perceive and understand what's going on in our world. Now, a little side note. Having said that, folks, I would highly encourage you to be able to make it to my workshops if you can. I still have plenty of room at the Dallas workshop a week from Saturday. And remember, if your funds are tight, you can request a scholarship rate. We're going to be there. We're going to talk about this. We're going to do some socialization with each other. We're going to interact with each other. And all of that is the healthiness that helps us stay and rise above all this crazy drama that's going on in our world right now. Healthy socialization is all a part of that. What they're also saying is the crisis and the chaos, it's all planned, and the timing of events are all planned. What we need to understand again is that crisis creates opportunity for change and helps us to wake up. Let's get our thinking hats on. Do you think that all this crazy stuff going on right now isn't waking us up? For those of us that, the Palladians say are the family of light, exactly. It's waking us up. It's giving us information. It's helping to motivate us to understand what's going on. Now, they do talk a little bit about President Trump, and they basically say he's an instigator. He is one of those that is unmoored, is the term they use. He can't be controlled. I've been around politics, he said, a long time, folks, and I remember almost every single president we have had going back over 100 years, they've always been controlled by the money power sources. The money power sources have always controlled their decision-making in the extremely important events. Trump is the exception. He understands what's going on. He never needed their money, so they couldn't buy him. They couldn't control him with money. And so he's what's called this unmoored person. And yes, he is an instigator, and he's instigating a lot of this crazy stuff going on. But what they are saying that he is the right leader at the right time, helping to create all of this stuff that's going on that helps us wake up. It takes an instigator to create these crazy environment in issues. So that's why, regardless of what the media is saying, regardless of what different people are saying, and I'm not going to get involved in the Republican versus the Democrat, debate. Leaders that are that are the needed leader at the right time come around at the right time, and I do believe that Donald Trump is one of those. He has brought us to this position of helping to shift and change our world. He's helping us wake up to the fact that we have lived in a world that has been massively controlled by these controlling entities of either non-physical or the elite powerful physical beings, and they have kept us in ignorance and darkness to what is going on in our world. And he's been one that's helping us wake up from that. They've had a plan, what I call the dark side, and this plan is to dumb people down, and is designed to limit critical thinking and to keep humanity in fear. And critical, because fear is what shuts down our ability to be in critical thinking. See, these high influences that come in, they understand they cannot violate our free will. They can attempt to influence based on their energy, but they can't violate our free will. So our responsibility is to keep ourselves in this place of being able to critically think through and to perceive and look at what's happening around us and to discern what's taking place here. And folks, when we discern and critically think the big picture, it's all part of the designed transition. Now, they also have said there's a battle of control for humanity by the elite. I've shared this over and over again in my workshops. The cabal's greatest fear is humanity waking up. And that's what we're doing. We're waking up to the world that we've lived in, the world that we've been programmed to be a part of, and how they have controlled us and kept us in fear and in ignorance, and we're starting to wake up from that. Now, the Palladians are saying that the turmoil and the chaos is going to continue, and it's going to increase for over the next year. And they alluded to the elections coming up in 2 months is going to create this massive chaos regardless of who wins. If Trump wins, you can see the liberal left just getting chaotic. You think we've got protest and violence and chaos going on now? If he wins the election, boom, that stuff's going to explode. If Biden wins, you're going to see massive disruptions and chaotic events even coming from the right side. This is not something that either side is going to come out. This is going to be one of what I call the most chaotic, potentially disruptive elections ever in the history of America. Now, what they have also said is when all this energy, this disruptive, chaotic, crazy energy comes into the earth, it doesn't just affect the people. Earth itself is a vibrational being. And so Earth, the planet, which is also referred to as Gaia, picks up all this energy and responds to it. And so what they're saying is that we are very likely to see an increase in natural and weather catastrophes. We're probably going to see an increase in floods, hurricanes, earthquakes, etc. Because, see, all of those are reactions. They're energetic reactions of what the earth is going through. And as we are creating this massive, creative, chaotic energy, earth picks that up and responds to it with like energy, because like attracts like. So expect the fact that we're going to see a lot of that. Now, with all this stuff coming at us, and with the Palladians saying it's not going to get better, this chaos is going to continue, it is so important that we don't get involved in judgment one way or the other. As soon as we evolve in judgment, we bring in and we equate ourselves with the energy of the chaotic event. Where the chaotic event is producing low vibrational energy, as soon as we start judging it, we bring ourselves into that level. And so we are now producing low vibratory chaotic energy as well by moving into judgment. Because it's very natural for us to want to judge this one way or the other. This is good, this is bad, this is light, this is dark. Our responsibility is to be observers only and to rise above all the drama that's going on out there and just let it be. Our job is to focus on ourselves. Our job is to focus on keeping ourselves in a non-judgmental, non-fearful, high-loving vibration perspective and looking at the world with compassion. when we see what's going on in these protests right now, and the Antifa issue that's going on, just let it be. Become the observer, not the participant in the drama energy. Just become the observer. Just observe it. We can watch it, we can observe it, but don't get into it at the same energetic level. So it's important. Now, let me read a quote here that they said that all hell is breaking loose because there's a desperation in leadership. Leadership has become very desperate over power and control. And they gave an illustration, and they aren't here to basically critique it or say it was good, bad, or indifferent. It was only used as an example. When Vice President Biden selected Senator Kamala Harris as his running mate, they would say that was an example of chaotic desperation. Because you see, just 3 to 4 months prior to her being selected, she was ripping him to pieces. She was calling him a racist, a dictatorial leader. In the presidential debates, she was all over him, attacking him deeply. So here he goes out and he selects as his running mate this lady that basically doesn't like him and is calling him a racist. You think that's not desperation? They use that as an illustration that is there. Because see, it's all about what is called the seduction of power. The power, being in the power and having what he perceived to be a person to help him gain that power was more important than what was called rational and reasonable relationships. They've said also there's a tremendous amount of blackmail that is going on politically. It says that there are people that have these files in the background that can just destroy people's lives in the politics. And they mention that, and I'm going to say this is what they are saying, the Palladians, that there are many politicians that have doubles, clones that are operating in their place, and the real person has died because they're saying this cloning technology has been around for decades. And it's now advanced to the point that they can basically clone someone who has already died, and yet that person is carrying on. It's all about a part of what we call the holographic illusion. And they say this is absolutely going on. That caught my attention. I thought, oh my gosh. To that depth, they're saying that there are political, and they aren't talking Republican, Democrat, it's both sides, folks. They're saying there's a lot of them. In essence, they've already died, but they've got clones, doubles, that are operating in their place. Again, I want to emphasize how important it is to not be judgmental of what goes on in the political world. We have a tendency to totally criticize and condemn and just rip to pieces the president that we don't like. We want to blame everything on this one individual. And folks, it's not about Trump. You know, yes, the Democrats blame Trump. Well, when Obama was in office, the Republicans were doing the same thing to him. We have a tendency to want to over-condemn and criticize this one single leader that doesn't have the power and the ability to do all that stuff. And here's what I want to help that you would grasp this. How much power and influence does President Trump have on your everyday, day-to-day life? If you take a deep look at it, very, very little, unless you're involved in the mental drama around it. Then it's massively influencing you and controlling you. If you can learn to just be the observer and just let it be. I remembered that shortly after Trump was elected, I went back myself and I said, can I think of one thing that President Obama did in his 8 years in office that had a deep impact on my everyday to day-to-day living in life? I couldn't think of anything, not one thing. I did go back and, okay, yeah, there was what was called the Obama Healthcare Act, But besides that, but that wasn't just him. That had to go through Congress. It had to be passed by Congress, and he had to sign it into existence. You see, the political leader, if we just allow ourselves to be the observer of them and don't get involved in the drama of the politics, they have absolutely no impact or very little impact on our everyday lives. There is nothing that they can do that impacts me unless I let them do it mentally. We have the ability to be very powerful, highly vibrant, conscious beings. And we're learning how to move into that and to become the creators of a new world. We have the ability to rise above all this lower vibrational drama that's going on in our life right now. But if you focus on the drama, you will get sucked into it, and it will keep you in a low vibration, and that is exactly what the controllers want. They want to control you and keep you again in ignorance, depression, and fear, because those become the strongest means and methods of control. Now, in the recording, Barbara Marciniak, she talks about what are called the Hidden Harmonies. And if you remember, that's the title of the message, the Hidden Harmonies. And then she goes on and she starts talking about, in spite of all this chaos that is going on around us, nature has a way to provide for us hidden harmonies that we can keep ourselves in a very high, positive, vibratory state. It's a matter of choosing. It's a matter of choice of perception. And what are the hidden harmonies? All the masterful, wonderful issues of nature. She said, just go out and go for a walk and look at a flower. And it's amazing, by just looking at the flower, you see all the Fibonacci patterns that are within a flower. Nature puts off a vibrational energy as well. When you give your focus to it, when you allow yourself to be thankful for it, when you allow yourself to perceive it, it will reflect back to you that energy. What I am doing is I'm working on taking time, and I walk out the door, I walk out to the beach, I get my feet in the sand, I feel the energy coming up out of the earth, and if even I have the time, I go for a dip in the water in the ocean. And I focus on that, and I just totally forget, or don't even think about all the stuff going on around in my world. I also, if I don't do that, I have a loop that I go on where I walk, and it's about a 40-minute walk. And I go and I just walk for 40 minutes. And I'm walking by trees and little forested areas, and I'm taking all of that in, and I'm receiving everything that is there. And I'm usually listening to something that's very positive and very powerful, as do when I do that. She's saying these are the hidden harmonies that are available to us that help keep us in a very positive manner. And then she talked about, again, socializing as much as possible, because it's in the socialization that there's an interaction with positive energy exchange with others. And again, that's why I'd say, folks, I got lots of room still, in the Dallas-Fort Worth workshop, just to come and be there, just to be around other people, to get out of this chaotic mess, to focus on something that's very positive. I haven't said this very often, because I don't want to sound like I'm kind of boasting or putting out my own trumpet out there or something, but I have received from hundreds of people comments at the end of the workshop that they'll say it's one of the best things they've ever been to in their lives. I literally have had 20 to 30 people literally say that. This is the absolute best workshop seminar I have ever been to in my life. And the reason is because it's it's in place where the energy is so positive and there's so much hope, and the big picture message is given, and it just makes sense about what's going on in our world and the shifts and changes that are coming our way, and it gives a great amount of hope of who we can become. That's what the workshops do, and I just get that from so many comments from so many people saying, and that's why I absolutely believe that 30 to 40% of the people who attend my workshops are repeats. If you attend an event that has a very powerful and positive, hopeful impact on your life, you want to go back again. And I am now at this point, in fact, even in the Dallas workshop, the people I've got registered, almost 60% of the people that I'm aware of are repeats. They're coming back. It's not just the information that you're getting there. It's the energy and the hope and the interaction and developing, networks with other people that are in your community that is so positive for that. And what the Palladians are saying is that isolation, when we don't get out and social act with others, it shuts down the brain and it creates a deeper aspect for fear and depression. It says the more isolation we create, the more we lose the ability to be fully human. It shuts down the greatness of humanity. One of the worst things that we can do is what's happening to us right now. We are being forced into isolation. If you think that wasn't a part of the master planners of what we call from the dark side that bring out this whole COVID-19, look at what it's done. It's put us into a deep state of isolation where we're not interacting with each other, we're staying in our homes, and etc. Okay? Now, let me go on. They talk about also, there's a great deal of corruption going on in Washington, D.C. And it's all about the money controllers. And the corruption is not just the elected political officials. It's the money people that control them as well. And they said there's a great amount of difference and disagreement in politics. And they're saying don't expect any good changes externally. The energy divergence of disagreement must run its course, and it will take time. We have to remember that we live in a holographic world, and our job is to rise above all the drama that goes on around us. It says corruption and darkness must be exposed and come to the surface for it to be healed. And we're in an era of transition. When we go through something like this, when we're in an era of transition, when old systems, when corrupt systems have to be done away with, in a society like ours, in a world like ours, they have to rise up to the surface and they have to be exposed. And it's in the exposure of the deep corruption which creates a lot of chaotic events. That fades out and allows the new systems to come in. Now, they had also talked about that we are in the midst of some major, very quiet wars that are going on right now. And these wars aren't physical or political wars, they're financial wars. There are financial wars going on amongst the financial powers of the world, the countries that have the greatest influence on finances. United States, China, the European Union, the Middle East, predominantly Saudi Arabia with its power over the money of oil. There's deep wars going on amongst all of them right now. Now, I want to talk about briefly, because some of you have been sending me this video of this new quantum financial system that is coming out. And and this is from a guy by the name of Charlie Ward. I'm not here to disparage Charlie Ward at all. Charlie Ward is a very good man. Except what he talks about, folks, it isn't anywhere close being ready to be implemented. It sounds as though it's ready to start right now. No, it's not. It's going to be something that's going to take place over a period of time Because the shifts and the changes that Charlie Ward talks about in this new quantum financial system, folks, it means that you're going to end up having gold-backed currency all around the world. Hello? The current cabal would never just sit down and allow that to come in. They will fight that to the nth degree because it's them losing their power and control. All the things that Charlie Ward talks about, there's going to be great resistance to trying to implement that into a practical, everyday pattern of our everyday lives. So, on one hand, yes, those are nice things. But folks, don't expect them for a while. Personally, I think they can be implemented on a step-by-step basis over a number of years. But it isn't going to happen overnight. They're talking about moving into a world where all the currency of the world is gold-backed. Folks, who has that much gold? Who has the gold? Where's the gold going to come from to back up all the currency in this world that's out there in circulation right now? It's not there. So you see, you can't move into a gold-backed global currency if the gold isn't there. The only way that could be possible would be if the different clans of the dragon families throughout all of Asia, including the Philippines, release their massive amounts of gold that is off market and underground. Personally, I don't see them doing that. I don't. That gold would have to be used because you see, what they're saying is you can't print up fiat currency anymore. You can only print up currency that is backed by gold. Well, there's a limited amount of gold out there. What does that mean? There's going to be a limited amount of money available to the world. So think it through. Put your thinking caps on, folks, about that, okay? Now, in this financial war, it's all about who can control the money. And that is why we haven't transitioned out of what is called the black gold control, i.e. the control of oil. Right now, oil is what is called the black gold. It is what dominates and controls the finances of our world more than anybody else. You control the oil, you have the ability to control the ebb and flow of the money. But we're moving into a deep potential global catastrophe. And COVID-19 has been a very, very big part of that. What the Palladians are talking about is that we are now here in the United States in a situation where almost 40% of the people in America can't pay their monthly bills. They did give an illustration that 80% of the restaurants in San Francisco that have closed down will never open again. Just today, United Airlines announced that they laid off almost 18,000 people. The airline industry is going to see 60 to 70,000 people losing their jobs in the next couple of weeks. We are just starting to see the impact of what COVID-19 is doing to a global catastrophic event. Think this through. 40% of the people in the United States can't pay their bills. And that's what the plate, regardless whether it's 30 or 40, you're getting the bigger picture. They can't pay their bills. So what's the first thing they do? They're going to make sure they have food. They're going to make sure that they have all the basic necessities of living day to day. And then the thing that's not going to go paid, their mortgage payment, their rent payment. That is usually the single largest monthly expenditure item that the average person has, is paying their rent or their mortgage. So now you've got individuals who are going to start going into massive foreclosures. You've got businesses that are going to start going into massive foreclosures. Almost all the major cities in America where these riots are taking place, 40 to 50% of the stores are shut down. That means they're not operating, they're not making money, they're not paying their mortgage payments. All of this is going to snowball to where there's no money going into the banks that are paying both the residential and the commercial mortgages, and real estate loans is the single largest debt obligations that a bank has. And so what they're saying is we aren't going to see the height of that until next year. This is going to continue on a snowball basis. It's going to get bigger. It's going to get stronger. And the governments are going to print up more fiat currency, which only creates massive inflation. Now, Blanca and I were talking about this earlier. Personally, I think this is all the unfolding of the snowball impact that's going to collapse the current financial system that needs to be moved out. And so the new system can come in, and our funds being released is a part of that. You see, what I'm picking up and what I'm getting from the information from my brokers and sources is it's not just us that are turning in currencies. There are trillions of dollars that are being put into place to move into humanitarian aid projects all around the world. And this is what is called the new money. This is setting up the scenario for the old system to be moved out, for the new system to come in, and we're getting to be a part of that. Now, I'm frequently asked about, well, when are we going to get our money? I've said this many, many, many times, folks. It's not about you and me. It's about the bigger picture of how this impacts the global issue. And with what the Palladians are saying about we may not see the full global impact of this financial downturn until next year, it may be that long before we get our funds. I don't know that. I'm not saying that based on any tangible information. All I'm saying that is a probable scenario, because this new money, I've been told, is designed to replace the outgoing old. And we may not see the full impact of the outgoing old system until next year. That's the huge financial impact that we are going to see. Now, they're also saying that there's a huge psychological and spiritual warfare that is going on that's creating this chaos and confusion. And people are losing their mental moorings because of the chaotic fear. The fear of the virus is creating more deaths right now than the virus itself. Between people that are committing suicide, going through catastrophic health problems because of the deep fear within them, this virus, the deaths from the virus itself is only a small part of what it's actually creating and the massive amount of deaths that are going on. The positive thing, it says that we are in an era where there is the splitting of the worlds are taking place. And this goes back to what I talked about all the way back in July, when I had encouraged you to go back and read the Neruda interviews. Jameson Neruda, Dr. Neruda, talks about moving into the era of human 3.0. And then there's a massive split that takes place at that time. And the Palladians are echoing that same thing. We're going into a splitting of worlds where people are going to be trusting in technology and artificial intelligence to guide their lives. But the issue is that stuff is predominantly low vibration methods of power and control over the masses. The other part of it is humanity learning how to go within. Learning how to understand and become acquainted with the full, complete power of who we are as highly intelligent, strongly spiritual beings that have the ability to create the world that we want. But this is a matter of letting go of the external and learning how to master the internal. What I talk about in the workshops is that we are entering into what is called the intuitive age. Learning how to intuitively discover who we completely are as highly powerful, intuitive, spiritual-based human beings. This is the new era for us. This is the new ability for us. And what that means, and the Palladians, they talk about this, we're going to start moving into learning what it means to be multidimensional beings. Now, you want to get a taste of that? Go back and remember what is called the A.R. Borden materials. They basically, he and his group of scientists were already living in what we would call that multidimensional world. They had mastered the process of LERM, light encoded reality matrix. They knew that the energy of the mind could produce anything that they wanted, and they were able to make anything appear right in front of them, boom, just like that, by just thinking it into existence. They basically had shared that everything you saw on Star Trek 30 years ago, they could do it all for real. They could teleport their bodies. They could teleport their bodies. They could create stuff out of nothing. They could read each other's thoughts and minds. All of that is a part of what is called the multidimensional world that is out there. And what the Palladians are saying, this is where humanity is going, that it's going to let go of the tech world and move into the intuitive world. This is what is coming our way, of what we have the opportunity to learn how to be and to learn how to become. That's a very, very, very positive outcome for us. We have the ability to become completely total new beings in what is called our consciousness and awareness. You see, for thousands of years, we've had these dark side influence entities that have kept us in ignorance and fear and depression and having no idea about who we really are. Their greatest fear is humanity waking up. And we're waking up. And in this process of waking up, we're going to start discovering who we really are. What is our true full capabilities? What is the ability that we have to become and who we really are? And that's why, if you want to really capture that, I would encourage you to get this book, Bringers of the Dawn, by Barbara Marciniak. Barbara Marciniak. She talks about that. I should say the Palladians address that. They address about who we are, what is available to us, the new world that is coming our way. But it's a matter of our free will choice. So, I think with that, let's go back. Blanca, I think I'm ready to wrap it up. That's about all I wanted to say tonight. So what would you like? I've gone through all my notes, all my pages. Why don't you go ahead and share with us your perspective and what you have from all of this?
Well, I think you landed on a lot of the things that I thought were significant as well. I really thought they laid out how these controllers, how you can trace back that this is an operation, this whole COVID fear program, because you can trace that there's an inhuman entity behind this plan, because they want to take everything that makes us human. So when grandfathers and grandmothers don't want to hug their grandchildren, how anti-human can you get?
Yeah.
When a newborn baby can't be passed around to members of the family, how inhuman can you get? When you can't see each other smile because you've got a muzzle on your face, how inhuman can you get? When you don't want to get near another human being. So you can just look at all the dynamics of what they've put in place, and you could see that there's definitely not a human hand behind this whole plan. And the other thing that we'll need to register and digest is how willingly we go along with this, how willingly we surrender what is most precious to us in our humanity because someone told us to be afraid. Yes. Now, I know a lot of people have gotten sick of something. I'm not real sure what it is, and I don't think the CDC knows either because they change their numbers every other day. The last number I heard, they said that there were less than 10,000 people who died of COVID. But all the other numbers, there were comorbidities. That means they would have died and they wouldn't have been counted as COVID if it weren't for COVID. So this is really a very big psyop. And now I'm not going to dishonor anyone who either knows someone who got sick or lost someone who got sick and they claimed it was COVID, but I'm just inviting people to step back and look at this from that perspective. Is it possible that this is a psychological warfare operation to separate the humans from other humans and to make us weak? As Dave said, the thing they really, really fear is us waking up. And as we're together and as we're learning from each other, or let's say we're several high vibrational beings together, that multiplies our ability to see the truth and speak the truth. So when you brought up that whole psychological warfare, I also plugged into that when they were discussing that.
I think there's no question that if you are willing to look at the bigger picture, and if you are willing to understand that there are non-physical beings that are controllers of what goes on in this world, this is what I call their last-ditch attempt, because they know they're losing control. They know humanity is waking up, and the cabal people know humanity. They know humanity is waking up, and I see this as their last-ditch attempt to keep massive control over the human race that they have been controlling for thousands of years, and they're losing that. And this is their attempt to keep humanity in fear, because if you can keep them in fear, you can control them. And this is, as I said, has probably been one of the biggest global fear-producing events that the human race has gone through in the last couple thousand years. It's not, when you just put on your thinking caps and open up, it's not hard to see that this is all about dehumanizing humans so they can keep us in this dehumanized, fearful state of existence. And we are the ones, and I love what Barbara Marciniak what the Palladians say through her, is that we are the bringers of the dawn. We are the bringers of the light. We are the family of light. You would not be listening to this program if you weren't that way. Unless you are fighting and arguing with everything and you're steaming inside about everything that Blanca and I have said tonight, or you're living in massive fear of what we've talked about tonight. If you're not there, you get it. You understand it. Our job is to bring in the higher vibration of light energy. And we're doing this collectively, and the Palladians say there's millions of us here on this planet. We're a part of the bigger picture that's helping to shift and change this world so we get to move into understanding and discovering who we truly are. And this is the massive psychological war that's going on right now. And this war is not just physical. It also involves the non-physical beings as well. Okay, back to you, Blanca.
The other thing, a theme that they continuously return to, which I think bears some contemplation and some working with, is they would refer to the hidden harmonies, as you mentioned, and these hidden harmonies can be found in nature, and they also talked about a return to the sacred. So these were like their themes for what is the new, what is the remedy, what can we work with in order to get to the other side of this intact and victorious. And so the things that I've worked with so far, this is going to be a continuous work, where that the hidden harmonies is what brings accord and what brings agreement. And then when people are together, what brings them together peacefully? What is a state of peace with others? So that's kind of what I'm walking with and working with as I'm saying, well, what is this clue about hidden harmonies? The other thing, and both Alan and I like to do this, is we look at what is different in nature. If indeed a new matrix is coming up and we're part of it, nature knows this and probably does not offer resistance to it like human beings do, because we're afraid, or we don't want to let go, or we think we're going to miss something, or, oh, our parents don't believe in this, and so I'm going to worry about it, or my kids don't believe in this, so I'm going to worry about it. We've got all kinds of different ideas about this, and nature just goes along. And it's surprising what we've seen. For example, we have a hummingbird feeder, and beautiful little hummingbirds come. It's maybe about, 10 feet away from our patio door. And you've seen, Dave, we've got these patio doors, all kinds of windows in the back where we can see the nature. And one time I was making breakfast, and the hummingbird was just peeking inside my window. And I thought, that's really strange. The only reason these hummingbirds come is to feed. They're so greedy little things. And he's just there looking at me, and I'm looking at him like, okay, that's new. And then I think it was yesterday, Alan sent me a picture. He went back to get inside the truck, and it was these mushrooms. Now, we don't know a lot about mushrooms, but I know I've seen a lot of mushrooms in my yard, and they're usually these white ones or kind of like gray. And this was a beautiful mushroom that actually looked like a flower. It was red, almost like a bird of paradise red. And, some people say, oh, yeah, we've seen it all the time. Well, not in our yard. Let's put it that way. And we said, there it is. There's a beautiful hidden harmony in this. And I've been studying that mushroom. And then the third example I'll give you is we have chipmunks. We live out in the country, as you know, Dave. And we've got all these little critters. And we can watch the chipmunks, and they scatter. They'll hide. They'll dart around real fast because they don't want to be picked off by a hawk or another bird of prey. And so they'll hide under rocks or hide under a ledge. And we saw a chipmunk just on our planter, which is a pretty tall planter, and he's eating. He's just sitting there, not running, not cowering, not going under. He's just sitting there, bare as can be. And I go, well, the chipmunk doesn't have fear anymore. So I would suggest play with looking at nature and what is different in nature, and maybe we can get to these hidden harmonies that they're saying will help us through it. The other realization, and you can play with this idea, is what if nature is really our ally? What if every tree that you look at has some hidden wisdom, has a vibration that can actually be helpful to you? What if every leaf is your ally? What if every bird is your ally? Just play with that idea and see what happens. And I think that's kind of their antidote to our tendency to want to get lost in technology. I think they offer that as a contrast.
Yeah. Because technology can be very dehumanizing, if that's the term that I'm looking for. It's so easy to get caught up into it, but we lose touch with what is called the inner soul aspects of who we are, when really that's where we need to be going. Because when you read Barbara Marciniak's, the Palladians, that book, They're Bringers of the Dawn, they talk about is that as you learn how to go in and master the aspects of your soul, you will discover a world that you didn't even know existed. It's a very powerful world. And it opens up your capacity to know and to understand, to learn and to grow when you start focusing on those things instead of what are called lower vibration technology issues. So technology, they said, is designed to, again, dehumanize us. When the aspects of the soul and of nature and being in harmony with that is what is designed to open us up and expand us. So. Okay, folks, are we ready to go to callers?
Yes, I think one quick comment about Return to the Sacred, which was their other counsel or other key they seem to hold out for us to reflect on. And I think they're offering Return to the Sacred because then that brings in, as you mentioned, Dave, that there are non-physical beings who are also our allies. So we talked about non-physical beings who are malevolent and behind some of these controllers here on the earth. Well, I think when she says return to the sacred, if we have a more spiritual orientation or allow for higher intelligences that are benevolent and helpful, I think that's what she's trying to, or the Palladians are trying to point us to, that there are allies that are non-physical as well. So
Yes.
that's something else that perhaps we can meditate and play with.
Okay. So, folks, if you would like to call in, if you have some questions or you want to make some comments, the call-in number is 515-605-9356. Again, it's 515-605-9356. And then when you get into that, you press 1 on your touch-tone phone, and that kind of lets us know, yeah, you would like to come on the air. I see we have one person who has done that. I don't know if that person actually wants to talk or not, because I think they pressed that right at the beginning of the program. So, but should we just go ahead and go to that first one, and then you can take anybody else that comes in?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, we're going to go to a person that had pressed 1 on his touch-tone phone, and it's from area code 650. So area code 650, you're here on the air. Did you want to have a question or make a comment tonight?
Good evening, Dave.
Yes.
This is Kirk.
Okay.
Yes. First of all, welcome back.
Yes, thank you.
It's been February when I was studying in San Francisco. But I did want to make a comment because I know, have had a lot of experience with Barbara Marciniak. While I've known you for 5 years, I first met Barbara back in 1994 at a Whole Life Expo.
Wow.
And
you go back a long ways with her.
Really felt that long ways and really felt the resonance and have followed her work, have read her books. And even she does a workshop in May, typically in Sedona for 2 days. She started in 1998 and
Right.
it continues today. I went from 1998 to 2012 every year because the message is resonant and so strong with the positive. It kind of helps bring you out of being caught in this chaos. And even though many of the concepts are, told another way, there's a power to the way you receive them from the Palladians. And I can tell you from my experience that she is an incredibly genuine, incredibly forthright person in bringing forward this as much of a neutral observer as she can be. And I would highly recommend her books. Obviously, you talked about Bringers of the Dawn. There's the Earth as the follow-up, which was the Palladian Keys to the living Earth.
Yep.
And
The
then
Living Libraries.
ultimately the Family of Light.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
one of the things that she always talked about, which you brought up, which ties to the matrix here, is that the idea that we see things linearly, yet we live in a time that's vertical.
Right.
And that actually our thoughts do create, but that we have collectively created a parallel probable, many, many possible ways. So one of the things the Pleiades are very good at is dissecting time and, in essence, what they call the game. And to be able to see the ripple effect of these. And much of her work talked about how we've shaped what we are experiencing now as this moment with us right as we are. Not as who we could have been, but as we are. And that's a path where the message comes to us. And where that's really important, I guess, is it ties to the Matrix idea, because I think Matrix for them, it's like a video game. If anyone plays a video game, the one thing about it is you always have decision points. What's fascinating is each decision point looks equally correct. So you choose one, and that could end in a good way. You choose another, it ends in a different way. They equally look valid. And that's what we're doing in our lives. We are making choices at decision points that shift the parallel probable that's here. And what's fascinating with the Palladians is they do explain why they are here.
Yes, they do.
Because they were actually involved in our distant past.
Yes. Yeah.
And they actually were involved in actually shifting it in a way that has now created the possibility of this tyranny in this very important place, which is a living library. And that they, 250,000 years in the future, are experiencing the impact of having steered this on the wrong path. And they are actually trying to get it to a more benevolent timeline because it created a tyranny not just here, but across multidimensional beings throughout the universe.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
This is an incredibly pivotal time.
Yeah, it's interesting when they describe about why they are working with us, because in essence, what they've said is that they had some experiences in our, thousands, hundreds of thousands of years ago that wasn't very positive, and it's now what is called a karma payback, if you want to say that in so many words, that they don't get to grow if they don't help us grow. If we don't grow, they don't grow. So, and yes, in some ways they're operating in their own, selfish interest, but it's still coming from a benevolent perspective. So, okay. Anything else there you'd like to share really quick?
I agree with that. So,
yeah.
Yeah, just final thing, because first of all,
okay.
I totally agree that there's something there that they're doing, but in many ways they're trying to correct something that in the end has an impact across timelines and across the universe in terms of disconnecting us from our true spirit and our ability to move into that multidimensional space, and then to allow it to be controlled by other entities. And that's why it's so important for us to actually do this work as you've described, exactly as you described, and to take the heart.
Okay, well, I've got some other folks here waiting in line, so Kirk, anything else just really briefly that you'd like to share, or can I go ahead and move on?
No, as I said, thank you very much. Welcome back, and I hope to see you again.
Thank you. Okay, appreciate your comments very much. Okay, I'm going to the next individual. His name is Aaron from area code 714. Aaron, you're on the air. What can I help you with here tonight?
Hi, Dave. How are you doing? I met you at the workshop last year, and I was, you probably know me, I'm the astrologer that's been, I wanted to relate something about Barbara Marciniak and also the upcoming Trump election and also the COVID situation. I could tie all these into astrology if I could comment a little bit on that if you would like.
Just don't go on too long, that's all. Okay, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, Barbara Marciniak, I've been following her for a long time, and she has The Bringers of the Dawn is a YouTube video. You can look it up on YouTube, and it's about 2.5 hours long. And you're reading the book, but you can also listen to her online.
Yeah,
but
the book is let me just mention the book is available in Audible version as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
She has a little part in there. It's called "We're All Systems Busters." Us light workers, we're systems busters. But she mentions in there that if we had a business card, it would read like this. It would say, "Renegade member. We're renegade members of the family of light, systems busters, available for altering systems consciousness within the free will universe. On call."
Yep. Yeah.
That would be our business card.
I remember that. Yeah.
So, but. Yeah, it's pretty classic. But I also wanted to say one thing I noticed with Donald Trump and his election coming up. Since I'm the astrologer, I look at this kind of thing. But in 2016, I looked at his chart and what was going on. It didn't seem like anything really stood out. But I looked at the upcoming election for November 3rd, and it's pretty amazing. First of all, Trump has an amazing chart just right off the top. But what's going on, he's coinciding with a few different cycles that are going on. And he's a Gemini, of course, he's June 14th. But there's a thing called the nodes, and the nodes are coinciding. It's an 18-year cycle, and his nodes, he's 74 years old, and his nodes is 4 times 18 is 72 or 74. But on November 3rd, those cycles are all going to coincide together, plus the moon's going to come in there. Anyway, it looks like it's going to be kind of like a no-brainer. It's like fate, destiny. He should, according to the stars, he should take the election, no problem. So, of course, we kind of all know that. But one last thing with COVID, the CDC revised their figures just a couple of days ago on Sunday, and they said that 96% of the deaths were, they revised it, only 6% of the deaths are valid. So 94% of them are false.
Well, no, that's not true. That is not true, and I'm going to clarify that because I've already watched different medical people explain what that meant. Only 6% of the recorded deaths had COVID only. The other 94%, there were 2 or 3 other things, but COVID was still present. I mean, they could have died, from cancer. They could have, but still COVID was present in the other 94%. It doesn't mean that those 94% didn't have any COVID. They revised it.
Oh, right.
See, only 6% was listed as COVID was the only thing that was present in their system. The other 94% had 2 or 3 other items as well. So it could have been a combination, but they couldn't clarify that COVID was the reason for the death. And the vast majority of them were senior citizens and were very high in age. So there's a lot there's a lot of misunderstanding going on around that shift and change they made. They did not, it was not that they were saying that, no, there was 94% that had no COVID. No, everyone had COVID present. It's just that only 6% COVID was the only thing that was listed.
But there is a difference when they say, did you die of COVID or did you die with COVID?
Yes, and that's true.
A lot of these...
and that's what they have clarified. They have clarified that they died with COVID, not of COVID. Now that was the clarification they were making.
Exactly. And I like your comment on Charlie Ward, because he says it's a shoe-in for Trump, and they got it all wrapped up. But I'm glad you clarified that because, he has just 100% positive outlook for the future, and it might be a little bit of a rocky road for a little while here.
Well, he just gives the impression that all the stuff is ready to start right now, and I thought, logistically, that isn't going to happen. I mean, he's basically saying that all the cabal sources of the world are just laying down and walking away and let everything new come in. Are you kidding? They're going to fight this to the nth degree. This is about their power and control and their survival.
That would be nice if they did, though.
It would be nice. Yes, it would. But this is a battle that's going to go on for some years, in my estimation. Now, I think what Charlie says, yes, has the potential to come in, but it's going to take a long time for that stuff to come in. So, okay?
Right.
All right.
One more question. Charlie Ward, there's 3 Charlies that showed up just in the last month. Charlie Ward, Charlie Freak, and Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk, he opened up the RNC election. He's only 26 years old. He's a little powerhouse. Yeah. Charlie Freak, he's kind of on the fringes, But Robert David Steele had an interview with Charlie Freak and Charlie Ward at the same time. People get a chance, they can look at that, but it's quite insightful. But anyway, appreciate it, Dave. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Aaron. Okay. All right. Okay. And folks, I just want to remind you again, they're helpful information sources, but remember, we live in a holographic world. Don't make it real. It's only real to you because you choose to believe in it and make it real. And then it affects you on that level. When we rise above it and just be the observers instead of the participants. But I share this information because it still helps us process and as we go through our everyday lives in this world. So, okay, well, Blanca, we don't have anybody else. Are you there? Are you there with us, Blanca? I see your light is on. Your microphone light is on. I don't know what happened to you. I'm not hearing you come through. Oh, you turned your microphone light off. Now you turned it back on. There must be some interference because you're not coming through, Blanca. Wow. Well, I think with that then, folks, I don't know why she's not coming through, but I think we're ready to call it a night here. This has been a little bit of a longer program. It's been about a little over an hour and a half, but this is one of those good informational programs that I hope you enjoyed. So I think we're ready to call it an evening here, folks. And there's the jingle. And so we'll see you next week. Okay? All right.